Hi everyone, and welcome to week 9 of my No Buy year. I would love to say that this is going to be a brief update, but anyone who's seen any of my other videos knows I like to get talking. So feel free to line up some housework, grab a drink, whatever you need to do, as I go through 5 practical repercussions of my shopping problem in years past. I don't know why these are all numbered lists of things, but it's, I guess, a way for me to stay mentally organized as I go through what's going to be kind of an essay in today's video. These points are going to go from the most shallow to the more intimate and deep and embarrassing. So the first one, getting right into it, is financial detriment. So this one's fairly self-explanatory, right? You shop too much, buy too many things, you're spending money that you don't need to spend, especially if they're things that you don't objectively need. And when you waste money like this, you could also say that you're wasting time, both the time that it takes to get the money to buy the thing in the moment, and also the time at the end of your career where you could have retired early if you'd invested the money when you were young and taken advantage of the compound interest. I am happy to say that I'm debt-free, so I paid off a student loan and a car when I first started getting a salary. But for whatever reason, I was very motivated to get rid of the debt, but I was not as motivated to pile up that money in a savings account. So instead of putting the money away to savings, I spent it on stuff. And now, obviously, I have the regrets of not having a bigger investment retirement account, not having an emergency fund if something goes wrong in my life currently, not having had a bigger down payment for my house, and all of these financial repercussions that I could have decreased or avoided by not shopping so much for stuff in previous years. And I think this applies on all income levels, right? So I've already had some comments on my content about if you don't have the money, you don't buy as much stuff. And that's true to some degree. But first of all, many people buy stuff with money they don't have on credit. And second of all, I think this can happen, like I was saying, at all levels. I have, in the past, been working minimum wage jobs that started at 5 a.m. So I worked harder for my money, you could say, when I didn't have the qualifications that I do now. And I still spent some of my money on clothes. And I might have thrifted more, but I definitely accumulated more than I needed and spent money that I didn't need to spend, therefore. And it's not always clothes for people either, right? Some people are into the beauty products, some people eat out too much or order delivery food or, spend money on other things that they don't need to at whatever income level and whatever amounts that they're at. So this applies across all tax brackets, as one might say. The second practical repercussion of shopping too much is just the clutter. So obviously the more stuff you buy, the more comes into your house and the more places you need to put your stuff. And it's scientifically proven that clutter is stressful. So having too much stuff creates more stress. I'm not a scientist, so I didn't prove it, but I've seen articles about it and other people have talked about it. There's also that concept of the silent to-do list, and Fumio Sasaki's book, and other people again have talked about it, how each item in your home is telling you to do something. So the clothes in your closet are saying, put me on, style me, wash me, fold me, hang me up, take care of me. The dishes in your cupboards are saying, use me, eat off of me, wash me, put me in the dishwasher, unload me, put me away, stack the plates, whatever. The books on your shelf are saying, read me, read me. And this is starting to look like Beauty and the Beast, where there's a bunch of inanimate objects talking to you. But even if your books aren't literally jumping up and talking and telling you to read them, or there's no candlesticks dancing on your tables, the stuff in your home does create an element of stress, especially if there's too much of it, especially if all of your flat surfaces have stuff piled on them in clutter, and especially if to clean your house, you first have to pick everything up. So that's the second practical repercussion of shopping too much. The third one kind of goes hand in hand with that second one. So if you have clutter or too much, then chances are there's a lack of curation in the stuff you do have. So for me, I like to talk about my wardrobe because that's my former favorite area of shopping. So I have more clothes than I need, and I know this, and I still have an excess of clothes that I'm now trying to pare down from that place of excess rather than curating by bringing them in more slowly, which is what I wish I had done. This lack of curation, to me, feels like a dilution of my personal style, and I'm not happy with that at this stage now. So I have too many different aesthetics going on, and for some people this is what they like. They feel joy in being able to present as completely different aesthetics day to day. And to some degree, I don't mind it as well. Like I have, chunky sneakers, slim ballet flats. I get the appeal of having some different options. But I think when it gets to be too much, and every person might have a different threshold for that, you just feel that lack of curation and that diluting of your personal style. There are outfits that I'll put on sometimes that I don't feel 10 out of 10 in. And I have other items in my wardrobe that I do feel 10 out of 10 in. And if I just had less and made sure that everything I had was that really, my vibe, it feels good to wear level item, then I probably would have avoided filling the holes that didn't exist of, the days that I was wearing something I didn't feel great in and felt the need to buy something. The other thing I wanted to briefly mention to kind of give an example of this is that the shirt I'm wearing is a shirt that I have 4 different versions of. So I have of collared button-up shirts. I have a white one, I have this pastel striped one, I have a blue striped one, and a black one. And I don't need 4 of essentially the same or very similar shirts. Now the black one I do wear to work a lot, so that one might be a special case as it's kind of a uniform piece. But the other ones, I'm actually wearing this one today because I'm debating whether or not to keep or declutter. I think this one's the least flattering on my skin tone with the pastel. But even having 3 other options for a button-up collared shirt is more than I need. I have other shirts that I can wear, and I don't currently work in an environment that demands a collared shirt. I had an environment that recommended a collar in the past, where I worked there for a year. But even then, I think having 5, one for every day of your work week is enough options, and you don't need to accumulate more than a reasonable amount, right? And if you do, the danger is that your style will not be as curated. And for me, at least where I'm at now, I prioritize that curation, that thoughtfulness, that everything feels like a 10 out of 10 over the options, right? I'd rather have curation over options and excess. I think it's maybe even more obvious in areas like home decor, right? If you have more things on your walls, each individual thing is less special. If you have more things on the shelves, not only do you have to dust those things and move them around more to maintain them, as in, point 2 with the clutter, but if they're not as curated, then they don't tell as much of a story, right? Or there's more of a jumble, possibly. Even if they're all the same vibe, even just having an excess of stuff, it's harder to appreciate the beauty of the one item. Anyway, I feel like you can kind of understand my point about the lack of curation and diluting of your personal style in whatever area that it might apply to you. The next practical repercussion of my shopping problem is a loss of personal integrity. Now, I feel like the pop culture references to shopping too much and integrity issues involve stuff like having, clothes with the tags on, hiding your packages from other people so people don't know how much you're shopping, downplaying the cost of items, and all of these to some degree did apply to me. So I would kind of be sneaky about bringing packages in so that people in my house or apartment complex or whatever it would be didn't know how much I was buying. I would kind of place things so that they wouldn't be discovered until later, so people would not notice how many new things were coming in or at what rate. I wouldn't really talk openly about how much money I was spending on stuff, and I would be internally a little bit embarrassed about what I was doing. So even if nobody was calling me out on it per se, I wouldn't feel great about demonstrating where my values were by my behavior. So let me unpack that a little bit, because that's kind of a clumsy way to put it. Basically, by shopping and spending money, especially on stuff and clothes, I was signaling that that's what I value and care about. That's where I was spending my time and money in a practical sense, and much of my thoughts. And I definitely wasn't comfortable with sharing the depths of my habits openly with people. Ironically, until this year, and now I'm sharing the complete depths of my habits with a bunch of strangers on the internet. But I'm finally at the point where I'm, pulling the britches up and making a commitment to improve forever by doing a complete no-buy year. So here we are. I'm taking control of my integrity. I'm getting it back. I am demonstrating to myself through this whole year that I can stick to it. And what's more interesting, perhaps, is that I am changing my personal identity. So when I see examples of the behavior that I used to be a part of in the past, I view it much, much differently than I did when I was in it. So the fact that there's such a prevalence of haul videos on social media and people watch them kind of indicates to me that many, many people are where I used to be, right? Unless all these people are watching them with that attitude of kind of, I don't want to say disgust because that's a little bit too strong, but like I'm not attracted to that anymore. And I don't think that's why people watch them. I don't think people are watching them to be turned off, right? People are watching them because they like the content. And this kind of leads to my fifth point as well. So I might throw that out there so that I can bring that into my discussion. But the fifth practical repercussion is just the consuming of the resources and the environmental destruction that comes with over shopping. So anyway, the fact that people watch all these haul videos kind of tells me that there's a bunch of people that enjoy that content and that might be mired in that behavior at their current state of life as well. And now when I see that content of people over-consuming, right, buying more than they need, displaying all that they've bought openly, I can't help but have the highlights reel of environmental destruction, bad companies that make poor choices and have problematic practices, the carbon footprint, the resources that we didn't need to use. There's an accompanying guilt now that comes with both kind of viewing this stuff vicariously, but also thinking about what I used to do in the past. Now when I think about it, I see that behavior as gluttonous and a little bit guilt-inducing. And I guess I feel like the overwhelming privilege of being somebody that had that problem in the first place. You know, it's the ultimate display of a first world problem, right? Oh, I have a problem shopping too much and buying too many things. I know I was talking earlier about people who comment on my content saying that people who live in a different tax bracket have different problems, right? But I'm making an assumption that these people are not commenting from a third world country where they're having food insecurity. So if that assumption is not correct, again, apologies to anybody in that position who might be watching this video. I don't know. But the point is, I feel the first world privilege of having the problem of over-consuming stuff that I don't need when I look back on my behavior, now that I've had the opportunity to become more educated about it, you know, read more books, seen more content, learned more about the problematic practices of the large companies, you know, the sweatshop and child labor and unsafe conditions, unfair wages, supporting problematic political ideas, the carbon footprint of even just mailing packages across the world. There's so many practical problems related to the environment and human rights. And I feel like I'm getting a little bit jumbled in articulating all this, but one of the examples that kind of brings it home for me is at the height of my shopping problem. Sometimes, you know, when a favorite brand was having a drop of a new product, my biggest worry at the time would be making sure I knew what time the products were going live so that I could go and buy the thing in my size before it possibly sold out. And that would be a thing that consumed my mind for a couple of days leading up to it. And, you know, compare and contrast that being my biggest worry in life to other people's biggest worries in life. You know, some people with, you know, health concerns or food insecurity or violence or other real life worries in their lives. And here I was, you know, sitting comfortably in my apartment, just worried that I wouldn't get the shirt in my size. So this is not a demonstration of where I want my values to be. And this dichotomy is somewhat inevitable just in the nature of life, and I didn't control where I was born or, you know, what nationality I am or what income level my parents were or, you know, any of that. And I'm not saying that we should feel guilty about our consumerism, and I'm not saying other people need to feel guilty even if they shop more or don't, you know, aren't on a no-buy year. And I'm not saying anybody who shops or buys things is evil or bad. So it's a little bit of a sticky subject. But all I'm saying is that the depth that I was personally invested in this first world problem of shopping and consumption is a level that I'm not okay with now. And I look back and I'm a little bit ashamed and I feel the guilt. And I recall how much emotional investment I had in the acquisition of stuff I didn't need. And it was way off balance for me when I think of the scope of the world and human rights and the bigger environmental implications. Another maybe little anecdote that illustrates this is that, you know, I think of some of the stuff I bought last year came from Europe. So this package had to be flown on a plane across the Atlantic Ocean, possibly making multi-country stops and going through customs and all this to get to my doorstep. And how much carbon emissions, did that cause going on this long-haul flight? The other thought is that I could have been on that long-haul flight, not on a cargo plane, obviously, but instead of putting my money towards stuff and supporting the travel of this cardboard box from one country to another, I could be saving up to have that experience myself. And again, demonstrating where my values lie a little bit more in line with where I want them to be. So again, to clarify, I don't think people who shop or buy things are bad or intentionally evil or anything like that, even if it is known problematic companies like Amazon or Shein. But people are susceptible to so many different levels of consumerist marketing and manipulation, and I just want everyone to be free and educated in their buying choices. So the goal, even for me, is not to become, monk-level minimalist, where we only have the true essentials. I'm still hoping to enjoy the stuff that I have and buy things occasionally and mindfully in my future. But I really want to avoid all of these 5 practical repercussions of my old shopping problem when I move forward. So in whatever form, that means I'll be buying things at a sustainable level, consciously informed, making decisions so that I don't acquire stuff at a level that makes me feel that environmental guilt. Maybe that'll be the 5 things per year. I saw an article that was saying that to be in line with climate emissions, goals of turning around the climate crisis, we need to be buying no more than 5 items of new clothing a year. So that might be a guideline going forward. But all that to say, the final goal is really just conscious consumerism. If you're still with me, thank you so much for watching. I know this video was a bit of a ramble that was kind of all over the place. Maybe I should try to recap those 5 practical repercussions just so we have a firm piece of ground to stand on as I say goodbye to you today. So those 5 repercussions were financial, clutter, a lack of curation of stuff, a loss of integrity, and the environmental and human rights problems, and contributing indirectly to those issues that many of us now know about. And with that, if you found any value here, feel free to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Let me know if you found any common points in your experience with shopping in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear if any of this resonated with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.